Well, once more further into the dungeon, and bloody hell, we haven't even gotten 5 seconds into this clip, and we've got another random encounter. At this point, I don't care about gaining more money or earning more experience points around here. We just beat the 4 elemental fiends for a second time in a 4-boss gauntlet. I just want to be done with this dungeon already. Kind of wish we had a moment of some of the characters being confused what a computer is, considering the general technology level of the world around them. But I suppose that's more world building than this game could ever bother with. Anyway, yes, we have another boss fight very soon after the 4 bosses at once gauntlet of the previous clip. This is a bit of a puzzle fight here. You have to destroy the floating balls in a particular order, or you'll be hit with an attack that will absolutely slaughter your team in a single shot. This is not something that anyone who is playing this game for the first time would ever be able to stumble onto. It is a trap of the most bullshit kind. If I wasn't already pretty fatigued this far into the game, I'd probably try to come up with some possible excuse for why this is forgivable in a game this old. But good God, this thing is an absolutely cheap trap immediately after a gauntlet. And even if you have the sense to save between fights, it can be such a rage-inducing thing that, well, every time I've tried to record the 3D remake of this game, this boss fight has been my stopping point. And I just restart the game months later because, dear God, I just don't want to think about this. I end up trying to go in the same order you do for the original, the PSP release, and the Pixel remaster in the 3D remake. It doesn't matter if I have a guide open that tells me that the 3D version has a different order than the various other versions. 3 out of 5 times I end up unthinkingly taking them out in the 2D order, and just getting pissed that the game has such a cheap boss fight in a game littered with other frustrating bits. It probably says something that I have less of a grudge against this trap boss fight in a dungeon with a 4-boss gauntlet just before than I have against the magnetic cave or the constant enemies in this game that do counterattacks, but then those other things hit me when I'm not fatigued, back when I'm still interested in the storytelling. But it's frequently this fight that is the last straw for me in most playthroughs of the game. It's just funny how that works, just like it's funny that I like Rydia the most as a character, but I just don't use her magic anywhere near as much as I probably should. Yeah, despite all my complaints, this fight is pretty one-sided when you know what you're doing. It's probably just my own absolute exhaustion at this point of the game that we've gotten this far that makes me wish we could just move it along. Hell, I've wanted us to reach the credits for quite a while now. Sooner or later, we've got to reach the final dungeon, don't we? Casting Reflect means nothing against someone who prefers to attack with physical might instead of magical power. You'd think the thing would try to cast Protect in response to our attacks. Really hope the CPU will be destroyed so we can finally get to work destroying that attack node. I'm really getting tired of seeing that full party attack laser. Dear God, we're 45 clips in and we've still got a good amount of raw footage to work through. If only the story felt like it had enough meat to it to warrant it going on for so long. Ah well, here's hoping that the next Final Fantasy I work on doesn't run into the same issue. kind of wish I knew why Cecile is taking more damage from that attack than anyone else. I could have sworn his armor was the best on the team. Shouldn't that mean he takes less damage per hit? I'm sure this balances out with him having the most health, but it's still confusing. Hence why I keep asking about it. And I'm sure I'm gonna keep asking questions like that for the remainder of the game. Especially since I doubt we're gonna get all that much armor that's better for anyone on the team this far in. There are no more stores with fresh equipment to upgrade to. We've gone to all the frickin' towns. There's only the hope that random item boxes we haven't reached yet might give us some armor that makes us just a little bit tougher to kill as the enemies just keep on getting stronger. And that takes care of the big disco ball. There's only one left now. I wonder how many people who've tried this game over the years never managed to figure out on their own that you take out the healer, then the CPU, and then the attack node. I know for my first attempt, I went after the healer first, then the attack node. When the CPU killed me, I decided for the next one to attack the CPU first, because I thought it was that I took too long to get to him. After that, I had to start checking online for the answer to how to get past that fight because it started to feel absolutely obscene. Definitely not fun that first few times, and I've never enjoyed fighting it after, even when I do remember the right order off the top of my head. By the way, how dare this bastard keep trying to act like he's a major threat after the 2 ass-kickings he's already taken on screen? I'm sorry, are we going for some kind of redemption arc for Golbez? I'm sorry, but this sort of thing deserves more build-up. Not that there's been too many things in this game's story that really got any build-up at all. Hell, Rydia's disdain for fire, a refusal to use such a basic spell because of the horrific events that killed her mother, lasted such a short amount of time it's almost insulting. They bothered to introduce the actually good idea and then didn't really do anything with it. Now, we don't even have another fight against Golbez here. We just have the old man stare into the armored guy's eyes long enough for both of them to collapse. Then suddenly Golbez is cured of the mind control that was strong enough to allow for him to get 2 major ass-kickings and still be villainous. And of course, the whole bit of Cecile and Golbez being brothers has no real impact whatsoever. It's just absolutely amazing how little I care about the story this many clips in. I want to see the end of the game, sure, but I just cannot find it in me to give a damn about the world these characters live in, or the characters themselves anymore. It had quite a bit of potential at the start, but it's pretty easy to see that this is indeed a very early attempt in gaming to have a long-running story with any attempt at complexity and drama. Seriously, Cecile should not be so disturbed by this revelation. He did not know he had a brother before now. If you didn't know you had a brother at all, why would you suddenly feel some sort of emotional connection to him that has nothing to do with your experiences with the man? We're not going to get any detail about what kind of evil Golbez had in his heart at any point in time, and nobody on our team seems to have any lingering feelings about the guy who was treated as the absolute main villain for the vast majority of the game. Everyone is just going along with this. We've barely said hello now that you're not mind-controlled and you're saying goodbye now? You'd think that a game this long would try to milk fresh plot details for all they're worth instead of just shrugging it off and moving on. Come on, why the hell are Rosa and Edge acting as if this is some kind of emotional thing and Cecile is being too emotionally withdrawn to appreciate it? I'm trying to decide if this is more infuriating to me than the way that Rosa essentially bullied a traumatized Rydia to use a fire spell to get past that ice wall a hell of a long time ago. Either way, this game seems to trip over itself more often than not when it comes to emotional responses. Well, hello there, Kane. Should I bother asking how you managed to arrive just as our party had an opening for you again? Or should I just entirely give up on the storytelling around here altogether? Apparently, Rosa has forgotten she can just teleport us out. She certainly did so in one of the earlier dungeons, and we haven't been given any in-game explanation for her not being able to do so now. Well, the scary kaiju-sized robot man didn't get the chance to do any real damage. Kind of feels like a shame, but then I was more interested in the army fighting against the damn thing than the heroes that flew inside of it, so... Edge, you don't get to say that sort of thing to Kane after you seem to forgive Golbez near instantly. Speaking of, while I kind of appreciate that Rosa is more consistent than Edge here, I can't help finding it funny that I'm not a fan of her as a character. Sure, she's not outright obnoxious like Edge is in the few moments when the game actually lets him try to bounce off other characters. Her utility as a healer is impossible to understate. She is definitely one of our most valuable characters on the team whenever she's around. But it almost feels like the story wants her to be treated as the emotional center of the team, and that's completely undermined by the fact that outside of some of the bigger tragedies at the start of the game, this story just cannot pull off emotional or character moments. Oh, please. If you give him a piece of your mind, then the still unseen actual main villain of the game wouldn't notice. You don't have much of a mind to give him in the first place. Not that the rest of the cast in this game seems to feel like they have all that much to give outside of their combat utility this far in. And, for some bullshit reason, Cecile wants to bench the two most powerful mages in the game when we're about to start moving towards the final dungeon. Ladies and gentlemen, if this man had his way, then the world would most definitely be doomed. Part of me wants to say that Rydia was at her best as a character when she was a kid. The other is baffled that Edge said that to Rydia when most of his interactions with her have been him flirting with her since, well, as far as he's aware, she's about his age. Good God, I'm probably putting far more thought in how Edge thinks than the writers did, because that just didn't feel right for him. Hell, I'm probably thinking more about how Cecile's character should have developed over the course of the game than the writers have, because personality-wise, he has not changed at all since the start. Whew, thank God Rosa didn't actually listen to Cecile's stupid idea to stay home. Hopefully we'll be allowed to resupply before dealing with anything major later on. Better question, Cecile. Why the hell are you telling Rosa to stay behind after everything she's done so far? She has been absolutely instrumental in getting us this far considering the sheer amount of abuse we've taken. And again, this possible point of character drama was solved so fast that they may as well have not introduced the problem in the first place. It has done nobody any favors, and it just feels like it's there for the sake of giving the characters an excuse to talk to one another some more in a story that doesn't actually know how to get them to interact with each other. It's not like Cecile feels strongly enough to insist on what he tried to do earlier by leaving the two girls behind. Pretty sure the party change thing is only something that was done in the PSP version of the game. I certainly don't recall that being the case in the Pixel remaster, and I can't really remember the last time I went far enough into the 3D remake to see if Naming Way told us something like that at this point of the game. Anyway, excuse me while I start fast-forwarding through the rest of this clip. Apparently the lunar whale can't possibly fit into the massive hole in the ground that would let us go back to the underground. Bit of a minor annoyance, all things considered. Still, I didn't see that coming, so... Kind of wish we saw a jet stream of some kind from the lunar whale. But then for some reason the game doesn't let the airships have their propellers spinning in this version of the game. Again, the PSP is actually capable of some pretty nice visuals, all things considered. I'm pretty surprised that the PSP release didn't do more to make things look visually better. I suppose the Pixel Remaster kinda does that, but they certainly would have had the room to do so, despite the cartridge also having the interlude and after years included, so I have no clue what's going on here. Well, it's certainly been a decent number of clips since our characters had a chance to actually rest. Not that the characters seem to give a damn. Cecile wanted to march his way right to the final dungeon immediately. Thankfully, I don't listen to him for tactical advice. Well, on the one hand, that sword is definitely harder hitting, but on the other, I prefer the idea of Kain using spears. It's not that big of a deal, but still. As a side note, it's actually kind of hilarious how little money means to us at this stage of the game. All we really care about is how many slots we have left in our inventory for anything we might happen to stumble across as we keep moving forward. The actual economy of this world just doesn't matter to us at this point. Especially since we can't buy any weapons or armor any better than what we already have.